one of my favorite times of the year right here. Preseason college football magazines starting to come out. Shout out to Carolina Jackpot, by the way. It kind of snuck up on me this year. Normally, I talked about this last year. In fact, I think I've talked about this every single year I've been doing this, but I love these preseason magazines. I've been getting these things and reading these things for probably 20 years, long before the internet was ever uh, a thing. But I usually get them before I go on vacation every summer, and I'll take two or three with me on vacation to read while I'm down there laying on the beach or by the pool or whatever. And normally I don't take vacation until like July, sometimes even August. But of course, I'm going on this cruise um, coming up here in a couple of days. And I was watching Carolina Jackpot's video the other day, and he had one of these preseason magazines, and I was like, "Oh my God, they're out already!" I normally don't even look for them until June or July, so I wasn't really 100% sure when they came out. So shout out to him for letting me know these things were out. They're not all out yet, but this is the Athlon. And they all. I think they all do this, but they make different versions of the magazines. This is the national edition. You can get like local or regional editions. Like there's an SEC edition, and then even within the SEC, there's different SEC editions that are sold in each state, and then they put on they change the cover up depending on who's on it. But this is the national edition of Athlon Sports magazine. They've got Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Shea Patterson, and Jake Fromm on the cover. So this is the national edition here. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know what all in here is interesting to tell you or whatever. On the cover, they list their playoff predictions, and according to Athlon, here's your four playoff teams: the Gumps, the Taters, the Dogs, and Michigan. So I guess I was wrong when I said I was going to be higher on Michigan this year than everybody else was. Athlon Sports is higher on Michigan than everybody else is. They're higher even than me. I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan made the playoffs, and I've said that multiple times over the last couple of weeks. If Justin Fields can't get the job done at Ohio State, I see Ohio State losing two or three games this year. I still think Ohio State's more talented than Michigan overall, but we haven't seen Justin Fields do much of anything, so we'll it's a wait and see type of thing. I'm high on Nebraska too, but anyway, I talk about this every year. If you guys, some of you younger people who grew up with the internet, probably never bought one of these magazines before. They're good to have just laying around over the summer. Whether you're on vacation or not, if you're sitting out by the pool or a lazy day inside or whatever, these things are good to have to thumb through. They've got every team schedule is in here. I'll always I'll take this with me this week. I'll read through it, and then I keep it out in my mom's basement or grandma's garage, whatever it is, whatever you guys are calling it these days. And a lot of times I'll reference something in here during a live show if somebody asks me about a particular team's schedule or something that I don't have saved to pull up on the live stream. It's easy to thumb right to it or whatever. But so anyway, if you guys have never gone out and gotten any of the preseason magazines, pick one up. It doesn't have to be this one. There's a bunch of them. This is the Athlon. Lindy's makes one. Phil Steele. I always get Phil Steele's too. His isn't out yet, but I'll pick his up later. But anyway, yeah. Well, what is it? Saturday morning. Good morning, and two. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on YouTube today. Thanks for watching, man. I sure do appreciate it. Also, and two, in addition to that as well. I appreciate those of you that have joined me this morning. I know I don't normally do Saturday morning live streams except during the season. Of course, during the season, we do a Saturday morning live stream every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. for about an hour and a half. I stream the first half of College Game Day on ESPN. Then I end the stream and watch the second half of College Game Day on my own. But I'm getting ready to leave here in a little bit, so I don't have time to really do a video today. And I need to apologize, too, about the Superfan thing. I didn't get a chance to do the Miami Superfan this past week, Uncle U, for a variety of reasons. Number one, I ran out of time. I had to do basically twice as much, well, really three times as much work this week with LouTube as I normally do. Because number one, those Superfan videos take a lot of time to make. So it took me way longer to make each of those videos this week than it normally takes me to make a video. Number two, I'm kind of struggling with the Miami character. When I developed that Miami character, and I haven't done very many videos with him, but the whole idea really behind the Miami character, besides how he looked, which was sort of just supposed to be just like a casual, like South Beach thing. He wore the sports coat with no shirt underneath, whatever. But it was sort of loosely based around Mark Richt being their head coach. If you guys remember the first video he ever did, he had the chain on with the cross on it and stuff. And so that's sort of the direction I was going with that. He was going to be like this really super religious guy who cussed all the time or what. But in anyway, and then Mark Richt up and left, and it sort of left me hanging with that character where I had to come up with some new sort of ideas or whatever. So I kept putting that off all week, the Miami character, and then I just ran out of time. Yesterday I had a lot of stuff to do yesterday to get ready for this cruise. We're going on a lot of running around, a lot of stuff we had to do around here, packing up the stuff for the kids and all that. I just didn't have time to do a video. And then I had to make extra videos this week to post next week. So I just ran out of time. It doesn't mean the Miami character is going away. The Uncle U character is not going away. I just didn't have the time to put into that character this week to make doing a video with him worthwhile. But I will make it up. I'm gonna, my plan is to try to do something with him, not this coming week because I'll be gone all week, but the week after. My plan is to try to do something with him. I've got a little something in mind that I'm working on. So we'll see. But anyway, that's that. Getting ready to leave here in a little bit. We got like a 7 or 8 hour drive to we're leaving out of Mobile, Alabama. It's only about a 6 or 6.5 hour drive, but we have 2 kids, so that means 8 hours because you have to stop every hour or whatever to let them go to the bathroom or whatever. So it's about an 8 hour drive, and then we have a hotel. We'll spend the night in Mobile tonight, and then we leave on the cruise tomorrow morning. It's a 5-day cruise, 4 nights. So I guess the ship comes back to Mobile Friday, I think. And then I think when we get off the boat, we're just driving straight home. I don't think we're gonna stay there. I think the boat comes back to Mobile pretty early in the morning, 9 or 10 or something like that. So we'll just drive back on Friday. So I'll be back on Friday. So I'll be back to doing the videos that Saturday. But like I said, I've got videos recorded and already posted to YouTube. They're just not, they won't go public, and they'll go public each day this week. So there'll be videos out every day this week. A couple of videos a couple of regular videos of me just talking about whatever, and then I also recorded. I think I have 3 NCAA games that I recorded. The simulations, you know what I'm saying, that we do on the Xbox or whatever. I have 3. I think, who do I have? I did Clemson versus Alabama. I simulated that game and recorded it. It's posting this week. I did Ohio State versus Michigan. Some Georgia fans might be interested in that, to see what Justin Fields looks like on the video game. I was surprised, to be honest. And Clemson versus Syracuse I did too. The reason I picked that one, first of all, hardly any of the teams are updated yet on that game. They're not all the teams are updated. So it's, there's a lot. Like I want to do Florida versus Miami, but those teams aren't updated. So I have to choose teams that have the updated rosters already. I'm not interested in streaming a game or watching a game of a team with last year's roster, right? And Clemson and Syracuse were both updated, and I picked that one because in the ACC, that's probably Clemson's toughest game this year, and it's on the road at Syracuse this year, that game is. And of course, 2 years ago, Clemson lost that game in Syracuse. If you remember, Kelly Bryant was the quarterback. Then he got hurt. Was his ankle or his knee? And the backup came in, and they ended up losing that game. So I streamed that, recorded that one. So 3 gameplay videos will come out this week while I'm gone, and a couple of other regular type videos, and a video. I'm gonna do a video tomorrow morning in Mobile before we get on the boat. I don't think we get on the boat till like 1:30 tomorrow afternoon, and so I have a video planned that I'm gonna do in Mobile, Alabama tomorrow morning to post for you guys for tomorrow. But Anyway, that's it. That's what's going on. So, what's up with you guys? I can't believe there's just many of you guys watching. 63. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Uh, who's here? I can't hardly read this out here. It's so bright. Killing Mine. What is this? Gunary the Gnome. Good morning, sir. Bad Dog, what's up, buddy? Yep, Alan V. Good morning. Uh, Oh, the title of the video. Well, I put a post out on Twitter and on my community page on YouTube that I was going to do a live stream this morning. Should I just talk football or should I try to trigger people? And I was kind of surprised, but a lot of people said go ahead and trigger people, which is weird because a lot of times the people that say that are the first ones that get mad when they're the ones that end up getting triggered. But yeah, the KKK is holding a rally today in Ohio, of all places, which is only funny. Well, first of all, the KKK is just funny in general. I mean, a cowardly, chicken shits is what they are, hiding in costumes and masks. But anyway, yeah, they got a rally today in Ohio, which is only funny because every single time I make an Ohio State video, every single time, uh, triggered Ohio State fans jump in the comment section and they can't argue any of the facts I say in the videos, how UGA owns them, their record against the SEC, whatever it is I talk about, Urban Meyer, the fact that Ohio State is 5-11 against the SEC all time, 2-10 in bowl games, whatever it is I talk about, they always come back with the same thing in the comment section, which is some variety of a comment about how, it always involves the South and racism or something. That's all they talk about. Justin Fields is a prime example of that. Anytime I mention Justin Fields, now there's a bunch of Ohio State people that jump in the comment section and want to talk about how everybody in Georgia's racist and all this kind of thing. So good morning to the Ohio State Buckeye fans. Enjoy your KKK rally this afternoon. I'm sure you'll have a great time. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if the majority of the Ohio State fans in my comment section will not only be at that rally, but will be participating in it. So be careful. Try not to burn anything down when you're setting your crosses on fire. If you catch yourself on fire, that's perfectly fine. I don't mind that one bit. Hey, Miss Lou, how you doing?
Hey.
Good. Yeah, I'm just talking to these people about this KKK rally up in Ohio today.
Oh.
Yeah, clowns with costumes. So yeah, it's just funny, and that's the only reason I mention it is because Ohio State fans are usually the first ones to jump in the comment section talking about how everybody from the South is racist. When I make a video that has nothing to do with race, it just has to do with the fact that Ohio State not very good, and when I list the reasons why, they can't argue any of those points because they're potato. So they just jump right to the well, you live in Georgia, you're probably just a racist redneck who lives in a trailer on a dirt road and is married to his sister and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, to the good people of Ohio, good morning. Uncle Lou cares about you. Yep, and enjoy your hate rally today. I'm sure you will. What else? Oh, it's Memorial Day. Should I keep going down this road of triggering you politically, or are there any? Is there anything football related you want me to talk about? I could easily trigger a whole bunch of you right now if that's what you guys really want to see in relation to Memorial Day. So. Did you hear about Rob, the voice of the Auburn Tigers? Yeah, that's sad. I hate to see that. What was it, a year or two ago when the guy from Tennessee passed away? I made a video about it. I hate to see that. As college football fans, you get real attached to to the voice of your team, right? Radio is sort of a lost art these days because every single game is on TV now. I mean, it used to be the only way to hear your game live was on the radio. So I don't think people have quite the same emotional connection to their announcers as they did maybe 20 or 30 years ago. But still, if you're a diehard fan, you know the voice of your team, and it's you can hear in your head your team's announcer calling certain plays from your past, right? If you're an Auburn fan, you can hear this guy calling the kick six or the prayer at Jordan Hare. These these big time, um, the program defining plays or whatever that have happened. You can probably hear in your head right now, if you're an Auburn fan, that guy calling that play as it happened. As a Georgia fan, there's several Larry Munson moments that were like that. The hobnail boot call at Tennessee. Of course, the Georgia Florida game from 1980 when Buck Belue threw a pass basically from his goal line to Lindsey Scott. Lindsey Scott caught the ball, I guess, around the 25 or 30-yard line, ran the whole way for a touchdown, ended up being the winning score. There's a whole list of them, right? And no matter what team you're a fan of, you have a list of plays in your head that just you can hear them right now if you tried, right? So yeah, Dob nail boot, yeah. A couple of you gave super chats. If I happen to miss a super chat, I'm sorry. I'm doing this live stream on my phone, not on the computer, so it's harder for me to keep up with the comments. But Hound Dog, thank you, sir. America hasn't fought for freedom since World War II. You're trying to get me going here. James Morgan, good morning, sir. Do I think Florida will beat Georgia? No. And will Georgia lose 3 games? Not in the regular season, no. It's possible Georgia loses 3 games total. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible. But I don't see any way possible they lose 3 games in the. If Georgia goes 9-3 in the regular season, it will be one of the most disappointing seasons in Georgia history. This is the most talented team Georgia's ever had. Period. It's not close. We don't want our head churn here to get angry. Good morning. Which cruise line? Carnival. Yeah, and I've never been on a cruise before, so I'll let you guys know how it goes when I get back. Yeah, the weather's it's supposed to be like 100 degrees every day where we're at on the cruise, so it's going to be brutally hot. What about Kentucky? What about them? I'm higher on Kentucky than most people are. I don't think they're going to fall off the map. I do think they're going to have a hard time replacing Josh Allen, especially. I still think Kentucky's ground game will be pretty good. Terry Wilson's got to develop into a better passer. But I don't think Kentucky's going back to winning 5 or even 6 games this year. I'm not sure they can get to 9 or 10 wins, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them win at least 8. Tennessee recruiting has gone to nothing. I don't think Pruitt really know how hard it would be to turn this place around. Tennessee's in a tough spot when it comes to recruiting. I say it as a joke, but it's true. But there's not a recruit on planet Earth that's ever seen Tennessee win an SEC title. So a lot of these Tennessee fans who remember the 90s, right, and how great Tennessee was in the 90s, there's not a recruit alive who was even born during that time frame. So it's great that Tennessee has a whole lot of tradition, and I agree that they do, and that historically they've probably got more to brag about than Georgia does. But right now, that's not really helping Tennessee right now, especially in recruiting. And then you combine that with the fact that Tennessee is not a state that consistently produces highly rated recruits year in and year out, at least not a bunch of them. I mean, not nearly the amount of Georgia or Florida or Texas or California or anything like that. So, in order to recruit at a really high level, Tennessee has to recruit the majority of its class from outside the state, and that makes it even harder to do. And then you combine that with the fact that they just really haven't. I mean, they've just been terrible, really, with the exception of one year. 2016. They've just been a terrible team over the last 10 years or so. I mean, a lot of 5-win seasons, a 4-win season. Tennessee's in a tough spot recruiting wise, and it's not like Jeremy Pruitt has a track record of winning because he's never been a coach before. So it's not like he can go sit down in a recruit's living room and say, look what I did at this school, because this is his first head coaching job. And I think a bigger problem for Tennessee, I think, is I really only see two scenarios for Tennessee over the next 4 to 5 years. And I just tell you right off the bat, I don't see Tennessee winning the SEC anytime in the next 4 or 5 years. I don't see it happening or making a playoff. I do think it's possible, if Jeremy Pruitt turns out to be a really, really good coach, I do think it's possible that Tennessee could win the East at some point in the next 4 to 5 years. Or if he's a really, really good coach, could consistently get to the point where he's winning 9 games a year, maybe even a year where he wins 10. If that happens, though, I think Jeremy Pruitt would leave and take a job at what he considered to be a better place. The other possibility is that Jeremy Pruitt comes in and does the exact same thing that every other coach has done at Tennessee for the last 10 or 11 years, which is nothing. I mean, he won 5 games this year. A lot of people expect Tennessee to win 7 games this year. I'm one of those people. If he does that, that's the same thing Derek Dooley did. That's the same thing Butch Jones did. I mean, he went from Lyle, Butch Jones went from 5 wins to 7 wins to 9 wins. And then he just felt, it just fell off the map after that. So I just think Tennessee's in a tough spot. Tennessee needs to be able to beat teams like Vandy and Kentucky. That's a great point too. Who said that? Jared Alexander. Yeah, that's a great point. And if you ever catch me when I'm being serious with Tennessee fans, that's something that I've tried to tell them. Um, Tennessee has got to get back to the point where they're beating Vandy almost every year, beating Kentucky almost every year. There's a right now. What's happening with Tennessee right now is that on average, they're the sixth or seventh best team in the East, and on a good year, they're the third best team in the East. They need to get back to the point where, on a bad year, they're the third or fourth best team in the East, which means even in bad years, Tennessee should be beating teams like Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina. And right now, they're not. So they just have a long way to go, in my mind. And it's not like, teams can have a bad year. And as much as I hate Florida, I made this point the other day, too. Florida had a bad year in 2017, right? Winning 4 games. They're not a bad program. They're a bad team. Tennessee right now is just a bad program. Not almost every year. They need to beat them every year. Um, yeah, I mean, I agree, but I mean, like, look at Georgia. We lost to Vanderbilt 3 seasons ago. In 2016, we lost to Vanderbilt. I don't know the record the last 20 years off the top of my head, but in the last 20 games with Vanderbilt, Georgia's probably 17-3, something like that. I'm just guessing. I really don't know. Tennessee has a losing record to Vanderbilt over the last 10 years. I mean, that's just unacceptable. Georgia doesn't make the playoffs this season. Will it be a huge disappointment? Um, yes, I think it will. Um, I know Alabama is great, and it's hard for anybody in the SEC to get past that. But Georgia's got to find a way to do it. I mean, they're loaded at every single position, depth wise. Where every we it's not like this is Kirby's first year. I mean, we've got 4 straight recruiting classes in the top 5. Um, we're loaded at every position. I think Georgia. I will be disappointed if Georgia doesn't get into the playoffs. Now, if we go 12-0 in the regular season and lose a close game to Alabama and don't get into the playoffs because there's other teams that are undefeated or whatever, um, I'll be upset initially, but I don't think I'll look back on that season then and be as disappointed. As much as it burns me up to lose to Alabama, it's not embarrassing to lose to Alabama. Alabama is the best dynasty in the history of sports right now, in my opinion. What Alabama has done over the last 11 years is unbelievable. Um, so it's not embarrassing to lose to Alabama. Now, you may say it's embarrassing the way we've lost, and that's because we basically dominated Alabama in the last two games we played against Alabama. Georgia has dominated them, and they just let it get away in the second quarter. Maybe it's coaching, maybe it's quarterback play in the second half, maybe it's getting too conservative, maybe it's nerves, maybe it's tensing up. I don't know what it is, but Georgia has absolutely dominated Alabama the last two games we played. It's not that Alabama lines up and is just way better than Georgia. That's not the case. I mean, you can watch the games and see that. But Georgia's got to find a way to close those things out. And yes, I will be disappointed if Georgia doesn't make the playoffs. Very disappointed. I mean, I've said this before, but Florida won the SEC in 2015 and 2016. I mean, won the East. Florida won the East in 15 and 16. Alabama won the West in 15 and 16. They absolutely humiliated Florida in both those games. They were blowouts. Florida had a total of 0 yards rushing combined in both of those SEC title games against Alabama. So Florida was winning the East, but then playing Alabama and getting absolutely blown out. Florida was nowhere near Alabama. Georgia's winning the East and losing to Alabama, but it's close games. And you can watch those games and make the argument that Georgia is the better team in both of those games, but they're getting out coached or key plays in the second half are going Alabama's way instead of Georgia's way. I mean that argument can be made, and people get mad every time I say that. But if you really think Purdue is better than Ohio State, you're an idiot. Going back to the year before, if you really think Iowa is better than Ohio State, you're an idiot. Going back to 2 seasons ago, if you really think Syracuse was better than Clemson, you're an idiot. What else can I name? Who did Oklahoma lose to a couple of years ago in the regular season? Whoever it was it Iowa State? Whoever it was. The better team doesn't always win. I mean, hats off to Alabama. They're loaded at every position. Their backups are better than most team starters, and they've got the greatest coach in the history of college football, and they've managed to beat Georgia by a hair the last 2 years. Georgia's got to find a way to get over that hump. You have to. Now, Kirby Smart's only been coaching for 3 seasons. This will be his 4th season coming up. So, what was Nick Saban doing his 3rd year as a head coach in the Power 5? Well, he was busy losing to teams like Illinois and Indiana. So while I'm mad and upset and disappointed and all those kinds of things that we keep losing in the 4th quarter to Alabama these last 2 years, I have to constantly remind myself that Kirby Smart is only a 3rd-year coach, now about to be a 4th-year coach. And as good as Saban is, he was dumpster juice his 3rd year as a Power 5 head coach. Okay, he was at Michigan State. He couldn't beat Illinois or Indiana. He was busy winning 6. He was busy winning 6 games his 3rd year in the Power 5. Kirby Smart was busy going 11-1 in the regular season. And sweeping his division for the 2nd year in a row. So, and don't give me the thing about how it's just Michigan State, because Michigan State made the playoffs after Saban left, a lot of years after too. So it wasn't Saban's players and another coach. It was none of that. It was 3 or 4 years. It was more than 3 or 4 years after Saban left. A lot more than 3. It was close to 6 or 7 years after Saban left Michigan State. They made the college football playoffs. So. Don't tell me to think, well, it's just Michigan State. Nobody can win there. That's not true. D'Antonio won there, made the college football playoff. Now, he got humiliated. What was it, 38-0 or 31-0, whatever it was. I think it was 38-0. I get that. But still, how many teams have made the college football playoff total? 7? Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia. Hold on. Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida State. That's 5. Oregon, that's 6. Ohio State, 7. Michigan State, 8. So 8 teams. In how many years have we had the playoffs? Started in 14, didn't it? 14, 15, 16. So we've had the playoffs for 5 years. A total of 8 teams have found a way to make it. Okay? So a total of 8 coaches have found a way to make the college football playoff. And Michigan State and D'Antonio is one of them. So don't give me that excuse about, well, it's Michigan State. It's Kirby Smart's 3rd year. He's got to get better. He's got to quit getting so conservative in the second half. Whatever. He's got to find a way to get over it. But he is only a 3rd-year head coach. Notre Dame and Washington. That's right. So I guess it's 10 teams then. UJ needs a mobile QB. They'd be a lot more dangerous. I agree and disagree. I don't think you have to have a dual threat QB to win a national title. A lot of people try to make that argument. I don't believe it. Look at Trevor Lawrence last year. He's not a dual threat. I do agree with you though that you need a quarterback who can move around. Jake Fromm had negative 30 yards rushing last year. That's unacceptable. Now, if you're going to throw for 4,000 yards, fine. Fine. If you're going to throw for 4,000 yards, fine. I'll accept negative 30 yards rushing. But when you're throwing for 2,700 yards and can't run the ball, that's not going to get it done. I agree with you. Jake Fromm's got to be closer to 3,500 yards passing than 2,700, which is where he's been his first 2 years. Okay, and you got to be able to move around in the pocket, escape pressure. Look at look at like Burrows, Ellinger, the LSU and the Texas quarterback. Both of those QBs killed us with their legs. Killed us with their legs. Now they can throw the ball, they can complete passes. That's not what I'm saying. But there were several in both of those games, crucial, critical, key third downs where Georgia's defense could not get off the field because those quarterbacks escaped pressure in the pocket, made a guy miss, and got a first down with their legs. I can't think of a single time last year Jake Fromm got a first down with his legs. I can think of a time, though, in the SEC championship game where he took off running on a third down and slid 2 yards or 1 yard short of the first down in a critical moment of the game. He slid 1 yard short of the first down on a critical third down run. And look, he hardly ever runs the ball. Okay, in that situation, if you take off running, you got to get the first down. You don't slide. This isn't the Little League World Series. You got to get the first down there. LSU game, Fromm takes a critical sack on third down early in the third quarter. We were only down 9 points at that time against LSU, and about midway through the third quarter, we were in field goal range. We're on about the 35-yard line, and Jake Fromm took like a 9-yard sack for no reason, where he did what he does way too many times, which is hold on to the ball too long, and instead of throwing the ball out of bounds, anything to give us a chance to make the field goal, he takes a 9-yard sack. And that happened multiple times last year, and it's unacceptable. And in the LSU game, it knocked us out of field goal range, and that was really the end of that game. LSU, we ended up having to punt instead of kick. A field goal would have made it a 6-point game. Instead, we had to punt. LSU goes down and scores. The game was basically over at that point. So I agree with you. He needs to be more elusive and mobile in the pocket. I don't necessarily think you have to have a dual threat quarterback to win it all. Obviously, a guy that can run around gives a defense something extra to think about. But I think you can win with a pocket passer, but he's got to be able to move. If you look at Trevor Lawrence, he's not a running quarterback, but he had about 40 or 50 yards rushing last year. And that doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not a lot. But that tells you two things. He didn't take a whole lot of sacks, because sacks go against a quarterback's rushing total. So if a quarterback's got 40, or if a pocket passer ends the season with 40 or 50 yards rushing, that tells you two things. He didn't take a lot of sacks, and he scrambled a few times and was able to get. I mean, I don't know. I didn't watch every Clemson game, but if Trevor Lawrence ended up with 40 or 50 yards rushing, which he did, that means he got some first downs with his legs on third down. Some amount. He extended some amount of drives, whether it was 1, 5, 10, 15. I don't know how many it was, but he extended some amount of drives with his legs. I can't think of any third down last year where Jake Fromm scrambled for a first down. I can't think of a single one. Maybe it happened and I'm not thinking about it, but I honestly can't remember a single time where Fromm scrambled on third down to keep a drive alive. I mean, everybody remembers the Florida game, right? Georgia gets first and goal on the 1-yard line. It took us 8 plays to end up with a field goal. We ran a bunch of plays, didn't get anywhere. Florida committed a penalty, so we got a brand new, and we got an automatic first down. Was pass interference, I think it was, or something. So we got an automatic first down. Couldn't get anybody having to kick a field goal. 7 or 8 plays from the 1-yard line. I mean, you got a quarterback can't even sneak it in from the 1-yard line. The offensive line got dominated. I mean, that wasn't all on Fromm there, but that was embarrassing. Didn't he run for a touchdown against Tennessee last year? In 2017, he did. I don't remember if he did in 2018, this past season. I know he ran for a touchdown against Tennessee in 2017. The reason I remember that is because that's about all he did against Tennessee. In 2017, Fromm played one against the 2017 game against Tennessee. the 41-0 game or whatever it was. Yeah, 41-0. That was one of Jake Fromm's worst games ever. He was terrible in that game. He had a QBR of about 13 in that game. He was awful. The Tennessee game that year and the Notre Dame game that year, Fromm played awful. And, of course, the Auburn game in the regular season. Those 3 games he played terrible. He sucks on the road. He has struggled, especially in the first. Well, everyone knows Georgia under Kirby Smart against the SEC West on the road is winless, 0-3, losing to Ole Miss in 16, losing at Auburn in 17, and losing at LSU in 18. Now, the last 2 years, we've swept the East on the road. Last year, we beat South Carolina on the road. Last year, we beat Kentucky on the road. We beat Missouri on the road. But Fromm was terrible in the first half, especially against South Carolina and Missouri. Jake Fromm was absolutely horrible in the first halves of those games. Against Missouri, Missouri's offense outscored us in the first half. We had a defensive touchdown in the first half of that game, and that was had it not been for that defensive touchdown we had against Missouri in the first half, we would have been losing that game at halftime. I think we scored 3 points on offense in the first half against Missouri last year, something like that. It was terrible. So Fromm was bad in the first half a couple of times on the road, and then of course the LSU game. I wish Fulmer would go back to being our coach. Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. Give me an out of nowhere player for Alabama. Lewis and Alabama under Sunseri, Jack Elbers. Mark Paul, I'm trying to make sense of that comment and I can't, sir. Facts, red and black. I'm tired of the excuses. Loaded. We're loaded. Listen, you have to ask yourself as a Georgia fan, if you're not going to win this year, when are you going to win? It would be almost impossible to have a more talented team overall than Georgia has this year. Now, yeah, you can pick out certain positions and say, man, I wish we were a little bit better there or a little bit better there. But overall talent, top to bottom, it's going to be hard for Georgia to ever have a better roster than they have right now. I mean, we have 22 5-stars. I mean, that's just unbelievable. The next closest team in the SEC East has 2. What's your thoughts on Georgia Tech? I think they have potential to recruit in the top 25. I do too. I'm not sure if they'll finish in the top 25 this first year with the new guy. I think maybe a lot of people want to see what they're going to do offensively before they, decide to go there. But Georgia's a very fertile recruiting ground. The Atlanta area in particular is loaded with talent. And even though Georgia is the better program, Georgia can't sign them all. I mean, tons of players from Georgia go other places. Georgia can only sign about 25 players a year. There are way more Division I players in the state of Georgia than 25. So some of those people, I think, are going to start choosing Georgia Tech, especially I'm talking about offensive players that before never would have considered Georgia Tech offensively because of the style of offense they ran. I mean, let's be real. Most of Georgia Tech's offensive players under Paul Johnson were players that would have had to go to non-Power 5 or FCS schools if they wanted to play football because they were option-only players. That's not the case anymore. So I think Georgia Tech will start getting some legitimate quarterbacks, some legitimate running backs, some legitimate wide receivers, whereas before they didn't. And because there's so much talent in Georgia, I think Georgia Tech should be recruiting in the top 25, even if it doesn't happen immediately this year. Is Luann a South Carolina fan? No. No one in this household is a South Carolina fan. Mrs. Lou went to South Carolina for her master's degree, but she doesn't care anything at all about football. She's not a fan of any football team, including Georgia. She's not a football fan. But both of my kids are Georgia fans. We should be recruiting in the top 25. New Jersey is loaded with top talent. That's from Comic Dude. He's a Rutgers fan. Loaded with top talent. I don't know about that. Number one, New Jersey is a small state. I'd have to look at the 24/7 list. I doubt New Jersey's in the top 10 or 15 even in terms of high school talent. And at some point, you got to win some games too. No matter how much talent is around you, at some point you got to win some games to get those people to come to your school, right? If I could pick any position that Bama could improve at immediately, it would be linebacker. Yeah, me too. I would pick inside linebacker for Georgia. We don't have anything close to Roquan Smith right now. A ton of talent, young, inexperienced talent. I like N'Kobe Dean, potential through the roof, but I got to see him do it. Tay Crowder, Monty Rice. I mean, these are good players. They're not great players. Um, I feel like potentially we have a great player at every position group on the field, except maybe inside linebacker. I'd like to see a little bit of improvement there. Channing Tindall is another one. That's the thing. A lot you forget about a lot of these names. I feel like so much emphasis gets put on recruiting nowadays that a lot of times we forget sophomores and juniors who haven't played yet because they've been behind other top talent. Like Channing Tindall, a guy that came in the 2018 class, didn't play much last year, so you kind of forget about him and immediately want to focus on the new guys coming in this year. Otis Reese, right? A guy we flipped from Michigan in the 2018 class. And you guys know, whether even you can hate Michigan, that's fine. They've recruited at an elite level the last few years, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Otis Reese would have been Michigan's highest rated recruit. Uh, he was our like eighth or ninth highest rated recruit in the 2018 class. Georgia's got a ton of talent that's never even seen the field. Nate McBride, I think, it turns out not quite as good as uh, was advertised. I think he got a big bump because of his speed. But listen, it's no secret that Georgia struggled last year at the inside linebacker position, and the fact that Nate McBride couldn't even get a look tells me that he might not be the answer there. He's been a special teams warrior since the minute he showed up on campus. He hasn't gotten a single second of meaningful playing time in a game since he got to UGA, and it doesn't look like that's changing this year. I was kind of surprised he didn't transfer out, to be honest. Quay Walker's another great example. I mean, you guys, I'm a huge Georgia fan, and I even forget about some of these people who were sort of waiting in the wings that were. How many 5 stars does Georgia have riding the bench? More than any other team besides Alabama. I guarantee you, it's unreal. Um, Georgia has 5 NFL players on their offensive line this year, and several 5 stars that won't even be starting. They're just loaded at every position. So they got to put it together and get it done on the field this year, in my mind. Um, I think I said it last year. I'm saying it again. Georgia's season, I don't think really starts until the first week of December. And if for some reason Georgia's not playing in the first week of December, somebody asked me about a season being a disappointment earlier. If Georgia's not playing in the SEC championship game, that will be a huge disappointment and an utter failure. I know Florida's getting a lot of hype right now. I think they're a little overrated. I don't think Florida wins the East. Georgia should win the East again, and if they don't, that is an utter failure for this year. Period. We start out with Vanderbilt. We'll beat them by 30 or 40 points. Then we play a couple of nobodies. We'll beat them by 40 or 50 points. Then we play Notre Dame at home. I don't think that game's going to be close. I'm not trolling. I've been saying this all offseason. I'm not kidding. There are some games on our schedule I think could be close. So it's not like I'm just coming on here and saying we're winning every game by 40. There are some games I think could be close. I don't think the Notre Dame game is one of them. I just don't. I think Georgia wins that game by 3 scores. Um, the Florida game could be an issue. The Texas A&M game could be an issue. On the road at Auburn could be an issue, not because it's Auburn, just because it's on the road and Kirby's winless against the SEC West on the road. There are some games that could be issues. I don't think the Notre Dame game is one of them. I think Georgia will. I think this season will play out very similarly to the last 2 Georgia seasons. I think Georgia's going to win a bunch of games by 30 to 40 points. I think they might have 1 or 2 that are close in the second half. Can they win them? We'll see. And then I think Georgia's season is going to come down to what happens in Atlanta the first Saturday in December. Can they win the SEC championship and make it back to the playoffs? Tired of what does that say? Tired of the every year game where our team shouldn't stayed on the bus rather than playing. Yeah, that was LSU last year. Georgia's offensive line and Texas. Georgia's offensive line looks like a bunch of security guards. Are huge. Georgia's offensive line is ridiculous. It's the best I've ever seen. I'm not kidding. Those are 5 NFL players. Andrew Thomas, left tackle, he'll be the first offensive lineman taken in next year's draft, in my opinion. He'll be a top 5 pick. He's that good. The guy came in, started day 1 at UGA as a true freshman, and has been dominating every defensive end he's faced. He's unbelievable. He's probably the best offensive lineman Georgia's had in 20 years. He'll be a top 5 pick in the draft. He's a junior this year. He'll go pro without question. He's gone. Trey Hill, one of the best blockers on the team. He's our center. Had some issues on shotgun snaps last year. I'm sure he got that worked out during the offseason. Should be fine. He'll be in the NFL one day. Ben Cleveland, he'll be in the NFL one day. Cade Mays, he'll be in the NFL one day. Isaiah Wilson at right tackle, 6'7", 350 pounds, and runs like an inside linebacker. He'll be in the NFL one day. Those are your 5 starting offensive linemen. I didn't even name people like Jamari Sawyer, 5-star, riding the bench. Clay Webb, 5-star, riding the bench. I mean, Georgia's offensive line is absolutely ridiculous. Whatever Sam Pittman is being paid, you could double it right now. It still wouldn't be enough. He's the best offensive line recruiter and the best offensive line coach in all of America, period. Is Cager expected to make first-team wide receiver? I'm not sure what's going to happen with the wide receiver position. It's wide open now. He'll have every opportunity because Holloman is the only guy with significant starting experience that we've got coming back. Simmons has a lot of playing time, but I think Cager will play and play a lot. I think he's good. He's tall, which is something we need. I think he's got to like him. I'm also looking at one of the freshmen needs to come in ready to go. My money right now would be on what's his name, the guy we weren't sure if he was gonna the one we weren't sure if he was gonna qualify or not. I'm drawing a blank on his name now. Not Blaylock, not Tongue, but the other guy. I'm drawing a complete blank. Somebody help me out. Pickens, George Pickens. Thank you, Will Marlowe. Thank you, sir. My money right now is on George Pickens. George Pickens is a prototypical #1 wide receiver. I don't want to give too much away here. I have a video. I've already done it, and it's posting one day next week while I'm out of town on which freshmen I think can have the biggest impact for Georgia this year. And spoiler alert, I spend a lot of time in that video talking about George Pickens. I'm putting a lot of stock in George Pickens. We need help at a wide receiver. We need a true #1. We haven't had a true #1 wide receiver in a long time. We need one. Do I think Georgia will make the NCAA with top 10? Do I think Georgia will make the NCAAs with the top 10? Talking about basketball, I do expect Georgia to make the NCAA tournament next year in basketball. Yes, that's what you're talking about. Tennessee football is a lot like Indiana basketball. If you're talking about the whole they used to be really good thing, then yes. Blaylock seems like another Terry Godwin. I like Terry Godwin. He's got great hands, run good routes. He's not tall enough, and he won't be a #1 wide receiver in the NFL. He'll be a slot receiver or a backup. He's not big enough to be a wide receiver, a true #1 wide receiver in the NFL. And don't name the exception to the rule. All an exception to the rule does is prove the rule. Somebody's about to name, what's his name? Is it Antonio Bryant's 5'10" or something? That's great. Now the NFL is going to a lot of these smaller, quicker guys, but they're slot guys. And if Terry Godwin finds a position somewhere as a slot receiver, then great. But he's not a true #1 wide receiver. He's not tall enough. Terry Godwin does everything really, really good. I don't think there's anything he does great with. Well, I mean, he's got great hands. I'll give him that. He's not going to be the fastest guy. He's not the tallest guy. He doesn't run the best routes in the world, but he does all those things really, really good. I like Terry Godwin. I'm not going to sit here and complain about Terry Godwin other than to say I think he was a couple inches too short to be a true #1 wide receiver. Well, none of our wide receivers had much production. But when you throw for 2,700 yards a year, it's hard to have a receiver with a lot of production. We didn't have a single receiver last year with over 500 yards receiving. So, That just sort of is what it is. And I know people say, well, we're a run first team. Woo, that's great. That's great. That's amazing. That's unbelievable. And thank you for stating the obvious there. But here's the problem. Clemson is lapping us passing the ball. No one can argue that, right? Trevor Lawrence is better than Jake Fromm. I don't care how big of a UGA fan you are or a Jake Fromm fan you are. Trevor Lawrence is better than Jake Fromm. Everyone has to just admit that and deal with it. T. Higgins is better than any wide receiver we have. Justin Ross is better than any wide receiver we have. Okay, those are two of their wide receivers. Okay, then you say, but Georgia runs the ball. I agree. Check the stats though. Clemson rushed for more yards than UGA did last year. You heard me. You heard me correctly. You heard me right. Clemson outrushed UGA last year. Okay, Georgia has got to throw the ball more. Period. Period. You are not winning a national title in today's college football with a quarterback who gets 2,800 total yards. It's not happening. It's not happening. Now, if you want to throw for 2,800 and run for 500 or 600, okay, I'll give you a chance there. But that's not what we're doing. We're throwing for 2,750, and then Fromm is rushing for negative 30. You're not going to win a national title that way. It's just not going to happen. This isn't 2010. Okay, Nick Saban won a bunch of national titles with quarterbacks just like Jake Fromm. Quarterbacks who didn't turn the ball over and who threw for 25, 26, 27, 2,800 yards. Those days are over. Nick Saban realized this 5 years ago. That's why he brought Lane Kiffin in. That's why he started recruiting real quarterbacks. And that's why he started running a real modern day passing offense. Nick Saban realized this 5 years ago. Kirby Smart has yet to realize it. But, I mean, go back and check the numbers. You're not going to find a quarterback winning a national title with 2,800 total yards unless you go back 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons. It's just not going to happen. What changes does Coley make to the offense? He needs to air it out more. I'm tired of all the guessing and the speculation. I want to know if Jake Fromm can throw a 20-yard crossing route over the middle. I'm tired of saying Chaney doesn't do this, Chaney doesn't do that. It's Chaney. I want to know if Jake Fromm can score points against Alabama in the second half. I'm tired of saying Chaney slowed things down. Chaney went too conservative. We abandoned this. We abandoned that. I want to know. I want to know. Can Jake Fromm win a game for UGA? Because he's yet to do it. Okay, he's yet to do it. And that's not a knock on Jake Fromm, okay? Because our run game has been so good that we've been able to win as many games as we have, okay? But I have watched every Georgia game over the last 2 years. I have seen a bunch of Georgia games over the last 2 years where the passing game was not working, but we won with our run game. I haven't seen any games in the last 2 years where the run game wasn't working, but we won with the pass game. 0. You know why? Because there hasn't been any. There hasn't been any. Every single game in the last 2 years that Georgia has rushed for less than 4 yards per carry, we have lost. So when the run game fails, Fromm can't win the game for us yet. At least we haven't seen it. I'm not going to sit here and say he can't do it, but he hasn't. It hasn't happened yet. Every game that Fromm has attempted 30 passes or more, we have lost. So far, Fromm has been a guy who has come to the line of scrimmage, gotten us into the right play and out of the wrong play every single time, doesn't make very many mistakes, and leans on a dominant running game to win a whole bunch of games against inferior teams. Inferior teams. When we play teams with equal or close to equal talent, that's when you see. That's when you see. Okay? So that has to change this year if Georgia's going to win a national title. I'm not saying it can't. I'm just saying it has to. Fromm needs to have closer to 3,500 total yards than he does 2,700, or we're not winning a national title. Not happening. Is more than 4 wins realistic with Kentucky? Yes, I would bet my channel that Kentucky wins more than 4 games. There's no way Kentucky goes 4-8. Kentucky might be the 3rd most talented team in the East. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Let Fromm grip it and rip it this year. Yep, that's what I want to see. I missed that one. Do you think Kentucky can beat Florida again? Yes, I do. I'm not predicting that right now. I'll make my predictions later on. But it's in, you have to remember that game was in Florida last year. So it's in Kentucky this year. Now, that's going to be a huge game for Florida. Um, Florida's got a tough game before that with Miami. We'll see, if they make it, hopefully they make it out of that game without any injuries, that kind of thing. We'll see. But it's not. I mean, it's in the realm of possibility that Kentucky could beat Florida again. I'm not sure if I'll predict that to actually happen, but look, this isn't like it was 10 years ago where you looked down and saw Florida Kentucky and said, "Oh, Florida by 30." Now it could be a close game, and it's in Kentucky. Should Clemson get their title stripped for having 3 failed drug tests? I don't think they should get their title stripped, and I'm not trolling here. To me, that title will always have an asterisk by it. I don't think there's any team in America that has 3 players cheating with steroids. I'm sorry, I don't. If it's 3, it's 30. I think. I don't pretend to understand the testing rules and all this stuff on how it works, and I haven't talked a whole lot about it, and that's probably why. But I do know this. If there's a cop in this town that writes 3 speeding tickets today, that does not mean that only 3 people were speeding. That means that 3 people got caught. It's you're never going to convince me that only 3 players on Clemson's team were cheating. You're never going to convince me of that. And Clemson fans. Now, if I was a Clemson fan, I'm sure I would be in the I don't care boat, and I just would be happy that we won. And I get that you can't take away the memories that Clemson had from last season, and I understand all that. And I don't blame Clemson fans, but for me personally, I'll never believe that 3 players were cheating. No, 30. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Now, yeah, BYU's not going 15-0. Sorry, they're not very good. They're so bad they'll probably get beat by Tennessee. General, good morning, sir. South Carolina can't look down at Kentucky. No, South Carolina can't look down at Kentucky. Kentucky's beat them, 4 or 5 years in a row? South Carolina hasn't beat Kentucky since like 2014. UAB beats Tennessee this year. That's a real possibility. I think that's more of a possibility than BYU beating them. I'm not going to lie. I think UAB is a good team, and you know how it works for these smaller schools. When they have a Power 5 team on their schedule, that's their Super Bowl. I hope for Tennessee fans' sake that they win that game, because if Tennessee loses, that could be the end for Pruitt. Not that Pruitt would get fired, right, for losing that game this year, but I just think you got to beat UAB. If they lose to UAB this year, then I think Tennessee will be looking for a new coach in 2022. And it could happen. UAB is a good team. UAB has an outstanding coach. He'll have other options in the near future. I couldn't agree more. You got to remember, UAB's program went away because the University of Alabama and Bear Bryant Jr. Bear Bryant Jr. ought to be ashamed of himself, shouldn't he? Anyway, the UAB program went away for a few years, so they've only had a team back for a couple of years, and are already at the point where they're at now. I think their coach, look at what happened with the Troy coach, right? Troy beats LSU a couple of years ago. Now this guy is the coach of West Virginia, right? I could see a similar thing happen with UAB. This guy's going to get a promotion to a real school. I agree with you. Who will win, Texas versus LSU? I haven't made my final decision on that. Right now, I'm leaning LSU in that game, but that's going to be a close game. I think it'll be less than 10 points either way, no matter who wins. I think those two teams are pretty similar. I'd give a little bit of an offensive edge to Texas, I think. I'd give a little bit of a defensive edge to LSU. I think that's going to be a really, really good game there. Could go either way. It's in Texas. It's not a neutral site game. It's at Texas. That's an advantage for them. I'm leaning LSU right now, but I think that's going to be a really, really good game, and I'll do my exact predictions later on in the summer. All right, guys, I'm going to end it. That's right at an hour. There, I got to hit the road. We're all packed up here, hitting the road, and that. So anyway, appreciate all you guys tuning in this morning. Great questions, great football talk this morning. If you missed the beginning, the football preseason magazines are out. At least some of them are. This is the Athlon Sports magazine, the national version. They sell regional versions and state versions, but this is the national version. Phil Steele, he's not out yet. That's another one I like to get every year. But the Athlon is out. You guys go pick it up. If you've never got it before, go get you one. Yes, I know you have the internet, and some of you even know how to work it, and that's fine. You can't beat having one of these magazines laying around on your coffee table all year during football. I promise you, if you go out and get one of these magazines and leave it on your coffee table or wherever it is that you watch your football games, or even watching Uncle Lou videos or whatever, especially the live ones, something will happen at least 20 or 30 different times where you'll say, oh, and you'll grab the magazine to look something up real quick. You won't regret it. And if you go on a vacation, that's what I do. Every year when I go on vacation, I grab one or two of these magazines, and that's my reading material while I lay around the pool or the beach or whatever it is and get sunburned. Go get you one. You'll be glad you did.